Hi, this is Kasian, and it's time for a weekly conference call at VectorspaceAI. We'll start with what's happening around the world. First, Virgin Galactic has successfully launched and landed a mission to space, the edge of space, as it's called. That's above about 50,000 feet. And that's been a hallmark event for the entire space industry, of course, including space biosciences. The virus mutation, the Delta virus mutation, has caused havoc among certain countries, and average daily cases have doubled in the United States. Inflation worries continue globally based on a number of reasons related to unforeseen market conditions and, of course, supply chain issues. BTC has retraced to 31K, and Ethereum is experiencing the same, with a tight trading range of around 1900, and the Dow has been pretty much flat for a few weeks here, just barely touching a few new highs with the S&P, but the Dow is trading at 34.8. On the industry side, there have been several advancements related to natural language processing, and one of them relates to people that have suffered from the loss of speech. There have been technological advancements related to more natural communications, and this relates to a brain interface device that is attached to a human's brain who's suffering from speech loss and is able to translate language from the brain onto a screen. Advancements in this area have been made throughout the last 2 decades, but we're reaching an inflection point right now here. And of course, this relates to AI, as more intelligence is built into human language than pictures of cats and fire trucks these days. CoinSpeaker is announcing that JP Morgan and UBS, Union Bank of Switzerland, are engaging with portfolio managers who trade crypto for the first time. And Bloomberg is reporting that Fidelity is increasing their staff by 70% in terms of their crypto staff, and that's based on increased demand across the board for crypto. And of course, as we know, Fidelity is taking the lead in the crypto area, related to Abigail Johnson having mined Bitcoin for years now, internally at Fidelity, in addition to Fidelity with about 8 or 9 trillion assets under management, is making a big push into crypto, and has been for quite some time, paving the way, regulatory speaking, for a lot of companies. DeepMind has produced a protein prediction machine. This is basically a deep learning system, a machine learning system that enables the prediction of protein sequences based on amino acids. And in quotes, proteins are made up of strings of amino acids that, when folded into 3D shapes, determine the function of those proteins and cells. So being able to design novel proteins simply by the string of amino acids and then predicting their function is going to be key for advancements in space biosciences as well. Next, we have themes and events, and we basically have 2 themes, 2 running themes for the last 3 weeks, just about. The first would be space, and the second would be China stocks on the short side. And for additional themes, feel free to join our VXV Thematic Baskets channel. On the corp side, we've got activity in the HR group related to new hires and new policies and procedures as we prepare to move into the US. And along those lines, we've also established a new board of directors, and we'll be announcing 3 new members soon, in addition to an extra seat for a potential strategic partner. On legal affairs of the company, we're simply preparing to, like I had mentioned, move into the U.S. So we're lining up a few firms related to accounting and SEC regulation. That will help us make put the best step forward on this. And then we've got new office space we are acquiring in Berkeley, next to the campus and the lab. We are still working on that. Under E&G, engineering, product, QA, and ops, we are continuing to prepare our move from Google Cloud into Azure Space. We will be straddling the two cloud providers along with AWS for some time, but we're moving all storage to Azure/Azure Space. And that would include portions of the backtester, as we're relying on data that we need to store, historical data used for backtesting. And Zilli and his group are working those details out. And we're working on the summarizer. And the summarizer would simply take a URL and summarize the content while also generating a thematic basket of stocks or cryptos related to that URL. That connects to our retail strategy. And considerations that we have under engineering would be minor for our retail strategy here. And as mentioned before, scaling, load testing, minor user account management, these things need to be in place before we roll out any retail strategy. So we're working on that. And then, of course, we're hiring visualization engineers. We have one that has shown some interest, and this person looks like they'll be starting next week, and they'll be working on the retail strategy as well in terms of visualizing relationships between stocks and cryptos related on a data set of choice that any retail trader can select and then have baskets generated from. And of course, this connects to visualizations that will be given to Morningstar, and that of course directly connects to consequential revenue related to the redistribution of our data sets on the institutional side through Morningstar, but also on the retail side through Morningstar. One might happen before the other. And then we're still under engineering, product, QA, and ops, and we've got a Space Biosciences section here. And the very first thing that we're doing with Space Biosciences is collecting data sources. And there's a wide variety of data sources related to biosciences in general, from the National Library of Medicine to biomedical texts, databases, additional data sets that serve as metadata, and proprietary data, and a massive amount of public data sources, scientific literature repositories, that all need to be categorized and organized so that customers can choose, or research groups can choose, what data sources they want to combine to create correlation matrix data sets that can then be used to visualize relationships and detect and explore hidden relationships. And the same applies to particle ops. And this would be our work with CERN related to targeting data sources or scientific literature repositories related to papers in theoretical particle physics. And that's an ongoing process. We've got project management happening there, and that just means we're going to have to scale and expand our operations with our work at CERN. Related to scaling into larger literature repositories and larger controlled vocabularies, taxonomies, and ontologies. And of course, visualization applies as well. And visualization also applies to the dataset toolkit, something we've always talked about. We want to put much better visualizations on the dataset toolkit so that we can maximize the onboarding experience and shorten it. Next, we have customers, partners, and collaborators. And on the financial markets side, as we discussed, we're dealing with Morningstar, and that relates to acquiring tick data from them. So we've had a couple of meetings with them this week. We had one today, actually, and that was to solidify our tick data arrangement with them. Every time a stock moves up or down, every time there's an uptick or a downtick, there is a new price or a new print, and that new print is associated with block shares or entry on the order book, a bid or an ask. So tracking all of those price points and every piece of activity that happens with a stock in terms of its pricing and size of bids and offers is key for us, because we calculate something called slippage, and that simply means when you move into a basket or move out of a basket, there's generally about a 10 to 15% slippage you can expect if it's not done right. So we want to be able to calculate an amount of slippage that we have per basket. That gives us more accurate returns, of course. We don't have to worry too much about slippage when you swing trade. It's not like high frequency trading where you've got a position in and you've got a time limit. With basket trading like this, where you've got baskets made up of components, whether they're stocks or cryptos that are associated to a global event, you do have time to position, and that's why slippage is not as much of a concern. But we do need the tick data for maximum fine-grained tuning. Next, we have got S&P, and S&P, as usual, is moving at their own pace. We are waiting to hear back from their Datasets showcasing group, and as a side note, we have not heard from their listing group. We understand why. For them to notify any crypto that would be included in any kind of index of theirs, that would run pretty much straight against any arrangement they have with the SEC related to disclosures and conflicts of interest. But we will be working with them on showcasing our data sets, and this does connect to the visualization engineer that we're hiring. We want to put better visualizations on the data set offering that we're giving to S&P, because we have time. We don't expect them to respond until Morningstar actually showcases. So we'll see how that goes. We're going to advance our work with FactSet as well. They have data sources that we need, and of course distribution channels that we can do revenue shares with. So we'll be discussing that with them in time. And related to the 10 funds that we have been referred to by New Data, we are going to approach them through Morningstar. We'll go ahead and let them know that our data sets are going to be offered through Morningstar and S&P, and we do have exclusive versions, customized versions, so that might speed things up on their end. We'll see. The retail strategy certainly will. So it's good that we've got multiple irons in the fire here and not just dependent on one category of customers or sector of customers. We are going to be hedging with a wide variety of customers and markets, sell side and buy side, retail and institutional, enterprise and consumer. On the Space Biosciences side, and we are still under customers, partners, and collaborators, we are talking with Azure Space on July 22nd. That's Thursday. We've got a meeting set with them, and we've been having preliminary meetings to get to this one, where we'll be meeting with Stephen Kate. And Stephen Kate is their senior director there over at Azure Space, also the deputy director, Secretary of Defense related to space policy. We'll be talking with him related to the storage, initially the storage of millions of data sets. And of course it starts with the data sources, those will be stored as well. And then the generation of hundreds of millions of data sets based on the combinations of data sources, thousands of data sources, thousands of different row types, thousands of different column types or column labels, and thousands of different context types. Based on those combinations, you're looking at hundreds of millions and billions of data set permutations and types. And that kind of storage is going to be eventually, we are predicting about an exabyte a day. And that's about 1 billion gigabytes. Before that time, likely a petabyte a day. But we'll be scaling up to about an exabyte a day as we engage in snapshots and deltas. Changes to the data. We are also still under Space Biosciences, related to University College of London. They do have a space medicine center there, and research into how to protect and repair the human body, related to specialized cocktails of medicine. We'll be talking with them about a curriculum related to a combination of bioinformatics, computational biology, and space biosciences, which are really just one and the same. Next, we've got our corporate strategy, corporate dev, and business development sections, which fall under the umbrella of sales and marketing. Or I should say sales and marketing falls under the umbrella of corporate strategy. And then secondarily, corp dev, biz dev here. And we're looking at conferences in Chicago and on the East Coast related to what we are doing with Datasets and the financial industry. And Ted is setting that up. So it looks like we'll have a number of booths we can set up, but also panels that we'll be speaking on as well. These are trade industry association panels related to commodities industry, related to prop desks, all kinds of algorithms, data engineering pipelines related to asset management companies and so forth. And that also connects to our retail strategy, as we'll be demoing some of our offerings there. Under IR, PR, and Marcom, we are producing the Space Industry Report showing space biosciences and its part in moving forward or advancing the space industry. And that includes the total addressable market, how much the industries are worth, how much of the industry space biosciences actually takes up. And as we mentioned before, that's certainly going to be we are predicting over 1/3. Next, we have questions from the trader base. Question 1, will the procurement of an on-the-ground bioinformatics lab slow down how quickly the team will be able to hit consequential revenue? I assume it would, but potentially generate more revenue later on. Well, yes. When you run a startup, you do have to do things concurrently, and they're not all going to operate at the same speed. The fact is, we have to have a headquarters, and we have to begin building out the bioinformatics lab and scientific staff. We've already built out part of the scientific advisory board. And of course, that's the tip of the spear in any organization like ours when it comes to making scientific discoveries or accelerating scientific discoveries. So this is something that there's no stopping us here with establishing a wet lab and establishing a headquarters in Berkeley here. This is something that must be done. We don't have to have everyone show up in the office every day, but we do have to have a headquarters where we begin to advance things, and so that we can support space biosciences contracts and grants. Question 2. Well, first let me answer the second part of that question, question 1, which was, will it affect revenue, slow down? It's bound to slow down our goal of securing consequential revenue. But as mentioned here, it will result in more revenue later on as applications in space biosciences fit across the board to all human biosciences. Question 2. I'm curious now that engineering was one day away from S&P data integration. What stage is Vectorspace at with regards to having datasets showcased on the S&P marketplace? Still need to prove alpha of datasets, negotiation of revenue split, awaiting their engineering team to upload, imminent showcasing of datasets, etc. But curious where they are in terms of selling datasets on S&P specifically. So that was partially answered earlier. We are waiting to hear back from their team on scheduling a call with their new dataset group, and we'll keep everyone updated. That's the best that we can do there. We'll keep them updated as well, related to our work with Morningstar, which we have not done yet, but that's converging. It's going to happen at this point, where we will have to let them know that our resources are divided between themselves and Morningstar, related to thematic baskets, the generation of real-time thematic baskets. Question 3, what will the market cap of the tokens represent? If the business is eventually floated and the equity is the value of profits to shareholders, future prospects. There's some similar questions here. Question 4, I'll just move straight to that one as well. How does the token model fit with the concept of a crypto company floating? What do the tokens represent if not a stake in the future earnings of the business? And then there's another related question. If the company floats, meaning if we IPO it, what does the market cap of the tokens represent? Is it just the future value of services provided? So for all three of these questions, it's important to understand the definition of data provenance. If your data is not secure, if you do not know who touched your data or who modified calculations or modified the original sources, date stamps, timestamps, what have you, if your data is not secure, garbage in, garbage out, you're not going to have good results. The VXV token ensures that your data is secure via data provenance, lineage, and governance. You wouldn't want it any other way. Nothing would be valuable. If your data is not valuable, nothing's valuable. Nothing we do is valuable if the data is not valuable. So we ensure that the data is valuable based on the VXV token. You take that away, you take all the value away. If you don't have good data, you don't have value. It's very simple. So floating vector space anywhere on any market, if we decided to dual list on the LSE and on NASDAQ and on NYSE, it wouldn't matter. The token would conserve, its value would be conserved based on the fact that it relates to data provenance, data lineage, and data governance. It ensures that. They're inseparable. So in terms of the value of the token, it's also connected to the value of the data set. So if the value of the data set is of high value, that group of tokens will be of high value as well. And we'd also like to add that this is uncharted territory for every single company on Earth. When you look at how you float multiple trading vehicles in the crypto markets and in the US markets. We know it's uncharted because there are no regulatory bodies established even to figure this stuff out. And they're backlogged, the ones that are trying to determine whether or not something is a utility token or otherwise. And when you look at regulatory bodies that are trying to determine if a miner can list on NASDAQ or whether or not an exchange can list its token and list a security on NYSE. These things are uncharted waters for everyone, and new financial instruments will begin to exist to address some of these issues, not just new regulations. So that's what we anticipate, would be to leverage, of course, new financial instruments combined with new regulation to maximize the value for every stakeholder. We'll move to question 6. Is it possible for VectorspaceAI to take datasets down that are unethical? And if so, what constitutes unethical? it would be impossible for us to monitor data sets that are generated from data sources. A customer has the free will to generate any data set that they would like, unless we were contacted as a matter of national security to remove a data set. That is the only way that we would take a data set down. We don't monitor the construction of data sets in terms of whether or not they're ethical. That would be an invasion of privacy to some of our customers. So we do stay away from that kind of monitoring, unless we were required to by law. Question 7. Recently, the topmost wallet received some 60K VXV from CoinMetro. Has the buyback started from the team? Well, we're not going to tell you exactly when the buybacks have started, because translated, that question just is asking, is there anything that will prevent the price from moving up? And or is there anything that's going to make the price move up? And buybacks are just a coded word for that. For us, buybacks are a way for us to reposition ourselves in VXV. And we intend to do that as fast as possible. And that would be, of course, connected to consequential revenue, where we use a portion of that to acquire VXV. And we are going to acquire as much as we possibly can, and at the lowest price possible. And then question 8, Hi Deep Hedge, what are some sources to follow for a bioinformatics student in undergrad to keep updated on developments in space biosciences? Well, we'd certainly keep an eye on what's happening at University College of London, as we're collaborating with them, related to space biosciences and bioinformatics and computational biology. We'd also recommend data sources similar to Rosalind, rosalind.info. That's ROSALIND.info, INFO. They present various problems in bioinformatics. Some of them are, well, we should say all of them, are related to space biosciences. And of course, any open courseware getting started in bioinformatics we can recommend. Send us an email to info@vectorspace.ai and we'll give you a whole syllabus. Next, we'll move on to strategy. And under strategy, I have a note here related to datasets as a platform. And we'll be talking about this from time to time, how datasets are a platform, and from that platform, the platform of a dataset, results multiple products, where multiple discoveries can be made, multiple hypothesis generation, or signal extraction, alpha extraction. When you look at a single data set, you can think about a company by the name of Google. Google was founded based on one single data set with rows and columns. You can do a little research on that, but that's an interesting fact that not many people know. We are also determining, as a matter of strategy, which division becomes the parent company. Would it be VectorspaceAI or the Space Biosciences division? We're going to continue to consider that as time goes on here, as we move into the U.S. Meanwhile, our focus is on consequential revenue, leading to buybacks. This is a laser-like focus of ours, and we're encouraging every team member to understand how what they do connects to consequential revenue. That'll be it for this week. We'd like to thank everybody for joining, and we'll see you next week. If you have